everybody doing?
Great.
All right, and well, first and foremost, I know last month was the first time I got a chance, and I shared with you guys to train the Corona office and some of the team with Torrance, and I've gotten a lot of the responses from a lot of you based on my conversations with Jimmy or James now, and with Christopher about, you know, and I appreciate that. Thank you. It's great to know that what I shared with you guys was received the way I wanted it to be. But and I know the last time I came and I spoke to you guys about the ASAP appointment, I was really directed more towards my mindset of how I approach it and my thought process of how I go into it and what do I expect coming into it as a trainer and a trainee's perspective. But today I'm actually going to share with you, I'm going to back up because who you saw last month is a guy who's been practicing and practicing his craft for the last year and a half since this great flip chart has been in effect. So because how many of you have actually been out into, if you either, whether it be a trainer or you're not yet, or a validated person who's not in the field with a trainee, and you've gotten both boxes checked. And because Christopher earlier was talking about the batting average, right? And that average of how many are you running, regardless of and what is the result that's coming from them, because a lot of people can get a box checked. But is that transferring it into an actual opportunity to gather information, which I promise you this, when you get that gap, for me, is the most important gap in anything else, is getting them from checking a box that they want a financial plan and gathering data, because that's when it becomes real to them, that it's about them. So I'll share with you some of those. That's very important to know why you're doing, get a result. And same thing with recruiting. Same thing with checking that first box to have them share interest in what you're doing and actually either getting them in front of you for a one-on-one or getting them, of course, into the BPM where they get into the environment where you have the opportunity to score, where you put them in front of the Christophers or the James and the Nickys in our hierarchy. And so I'll tell you this, when I first got started, and regardless of what James says, I did run the most great flip chart appointments in the first quarter when Mark Onstadt went live and announced the flip chart. Right? I remember I can tell you the first time I heard Mark do the flip chart. It was a webinar, and it was late on the webinar because there was technical issues. You can even hear it on the video, on the audio. And I remember he did it. That was Friday. The moment I heard that, I said, "This is what I've been waiting for." And that Sunday, he recorded it. I recorded it on my phone as he was talking in the middle of it. And I practiced it all day Sunday after the BPM because I went live and translated it in Spanish on Sunday that weekend. And from then on, that's what I ran. And my first time running this appointment, I got a client. They checked the box. They became my client. And I got a result. And I was excited because from that moment on, you cannot convince me that it doesn't work, because all it has to do is work once. Once it works, then you cannot say it doesn't. But this is what the problem was. I didn't understand the psychology behind what Mark really had. I just knew the words of hearing Mark. I just knew how to say it in a way where they can receive it. But I, as the trainer or the manager given the information, didn't even know what I was, didn't understand the psychology and the power behind what I was doing. And so that was very important. And so I keep running these appointments because I got a result the first time. And many of us have you ever gotten where you got a result and you do it over and over again? And you're like, dang, why didn't it work now if it worked the first time? Because you're still talking to them as that person who doesn't understand. Because it worked once, you think it works with everybody. And there's no style, there's no precision or effectiveness with what you're saying. And that's what happened to me, where my batting average was out of 10 families that I met with for the first time, maybe 3 or 4 would actually turn into what they checked. Out of those 10, 9 out of 10 will check a box. But understand this. Sometimes a person can check a box if you add no value or they're just there. Sometimes they won't check. They'll just check one just to get you off their back. Be honest. You added. They didn't understand the value you just provided to them. They checked the box just so you can say, "Okay, cool, I got one." And then on some of the trainers, and I made the mistake in the beginning, is I took it and said, great, I'll follow up with you. And let them tell me when I can schedule, as opposed to taking control, but we'll talk about that. And then, and I kept doing this. And it happened for 2 months, 3 months, and I was getting results. But one time, Kim was saying, Edson, you're running all these appointments. Where are the results? Like, you're running so much more than what you're actually bringing in. Has anybody experienced that with the Great Flip Chart? Yes. Is anyone still experiencing that with the Great Flip Chart? Yes. Right? So that's when you have to understand this. Not whether I'm going to share this with you today. This hierarchy, and I can't say the whole company because I don't know everybody in this company. When we say, and I learned this when I was going through this, we truly do have, in my opinion, a hierarchy that's really on the same page of wanting to become the best. And we have incredible, when we say we have incredible leaders, when we say we have great SMDs, if you may believe it or not, trust me, if you don't, you better check yourself, because we do. Because I remember when I came to Christopher, that was a very specific conversation I had with Christopher, and before I did have that conversation, Christopher shared this with me, and I'll share it with you today, that made an impact on my brain when I was talking about this stuff, and he shared it, actually, I think it was last conference call, he actually shared with you guys. Remember he talked about the Lakers and the triangle offense? If you guys did not understand, if you're on the conference call and he's talking about, there's some gold in those conference calls that if you're not catching, that's why you're just distracted with so many things. Those conference calls are powerful because he shared with you. When Phil Jackson left the Lakers, they were a championship team. You got to understand that. They were a championship caliber team. And when the new coach came in, completely changed from the triangle offense to a completely different offense. They had, well, I'm not a Laker fan, but they have Kobe Bryant, who I think is a fantastic player. One of the biggest people. I love his mindset and how he approaches things as a professional. He had, like Christopher mentioned, Pau Gasol, all these all-stars, all these incredible basketball players. But it was a new system. And although they had all the talent in the world, all the skill, they knew, in our world, they knew the words, they knew every page of the flip chart, they understood conceptually what has to be said on the. They never practiced it enough, and they haven't mastered their craft. They haven't worked collectively as a unit to be able to be effective with that system, and that's what was happening with me. I wasn't effective with the new process. And I came and I talked to Christopher, and I shared with him my concerns. I shared with him, Christopher, I was to the point where I almost went back to the blue flip chart. Because I figured it's not me, it's the flip chart may not be working as strong as I thought it was, right? But then Christopher says, you know what, Edson, I understand. We had a pretty extensive conversation, but he referred me to two people. He says, if you're having an issue with this, guess who the source is the best person to talk to? Mark Onstock, who I have tons of respect, and I don't know if Colorado's still on, but I will tell them publicly, and I'll tell you today, I love that office. Whether I don't spend a lot of time with them, I think it's gold what they're doing with Mark and Rachel. I have huge respect for both of them. And I reached out to Mark first, and I'll share with you what happened in my business that changed with Mark. And so just understand this. Although the last time I talked to you, I told you about my mindset and how aggressive and intense I am about not only how I train my team, but not only how I approach it with my clients and what I expect. I worked that hard on myself for the last year on mastering the most important pieces of this presentation to make sure that it can be effective. And can I use the board?
Erasers on the floor.
Where? And I'll write these three. And I shared this with you guys the last time, but I kind of went through them pretty briefly. And these are the things that completely changed my business. In your presentation in the A-set, you have your introduction, or otherwise known as the 2 sets of eyes. You have the actual grade flip chart, which I call the fluff. And I'll share with you why I call it the fluff. And then the third thing is, there's the last part, which is the close. I shared with you guys the last time that in every presentation, it doesn't matter if it's our process or any other ones, there's 3 parts. There's the intro, there's the body. In my case, I call it the fluff. That's from Dave Limpert. If you haven't heard from him, go on to mywfg.com. He has an incredible video about how he goes out there and does his drop by. And then there's the close. When I talked to Mark for the first time, I thought this was the most important piece. You know how much time I spent mastering every single word, the way he delivers it, every time the questions, how to answer their objections. I worked so hard on the fluff when it was the least most important piece of the entire thing. Because I don't care if it's the blue, the gray flip chart, you want to call it the ASAP appointment, the red flip chart, S-curve, or all these other things you can think of. As long as it educates, intrigues, and disturbs, that's all that matters. The fluff can always change. But when I talked to Mark, I'm having a hard time getting people to commit on the closing part, and I'm not getting the results that I'm looking for because they're not transferring over. And Mark didn't talk to me about every page of the flip chart. Mark says, how is your intro? And I shared that with him, and then I asked him, well, how do you do it? And this is what I'm going to share with you guys, and then he also helped me with the close. Because, and I talked about it last time, remember the Bill Gates story? Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever felt weird saying the Bill Gates story? Never feel like you're just saying the words, but you're like, it's just like, I'm just saying it because I was told to say it, but you don't even understand the psychology behind it and how you can actually hook someone in. Some people say they don't have a problem with it, but those that do, hey, if it feels weird, it's going to come out weird. Does that make sense? So Mark helps me with this, and I'm going to share with you exactly what worked for me. I'm sharing with you what I changed. I'm going to tell you how I used to think about it and the shifts that I made when it came to the introduction first. Because, and with the introduction, with the two sets of eyes, when it comes to the introduction, it's, and Mark told me this, you're setting up the entire thing from the beginning. You have to set the expectation of what you're about to take them, the ride they're about to go on. They don't even know what's about to come. You have to set it up in the beginning to let them know that they need to start paying attention to what you're about to say, because there's something that you're looking for as they're listening for this information. Because before, when I did it in the introduction, I just said the words. I said, hey, have you ever heard of our company before? Yes. What have you heard about it? Okay, great. And then I just move on to the next thing. And then I say the two sets of eyes, and I tell them, you know, I want you to look at this information from the first set of eyes is from the perspective of how we help families and we make a difference. So if anybody comes to mind, please let us know, because we'd be more than happy to share the same information with them. Then the second set of eyes is from the perspective of our expansion. If you know somebody who's looking for work, or somebody who just probably got laid off, or maybe interested in making an extra $3,000 or $4,000 a month part-time, just know we're expanding, and I'd be more than happy to be able to meet with them and see if there would be a fit. Does that make sense? And they said yes, and then boom. I was so freaking quick to try to get into the fluff that I didn't even let them sink in why they were even sitting down. The reason I sped a little bit fast on that is because if some of you, whether you realize it or not, I didn't realize I was just passing through that stuff. Sometimes when we get such in a habit, it just seems like, no, I think I'm doing it the right way. I should be doing it the right way. Yeah, you're saying the right words. But you're not delivering a message where you set the expectation of what you're doing. So Mark was telling me, you know, when a person says, have you ever heard of our company before? Or what has this person told you about our company? Or have you ever heard of Transamerica Financial Advisors? And they say, yes, I've heard of you. Tell them, what have you heard? You have to know what they're thinking about your company. Because whether you'd like to believe that we're different than Primerica or not, we're better. They still hear the Erica part. Transamerica, they hear Primerica, they boom, automatically say, I've heard of you before. Especially in our valley, a lot of people have. So if that's, I have to let them know, what company are you thinking of? It better be mine. If it is, great. What do you know about my company? If it's not, we have to make sure that you understand that's not us. And I'm about to share with you who we really are. You got to set that out from the gate. You got to know what they're thinking. So before they even start the conversation, you can be in the middle of the fluff and they're still thinking you're a different company, or they are assuming what you're due. I don't want them to get into the second part. I don't want to get into the bottom until you know what I do as a company. Right? But you got to set that tone, because to tell them, here at Transamerica, although you don't know much about our firm, Or you probably heard a couple things. Yes, life insurance is one of the many things that we do in our firm. That's not the only thing that we do in our firm. You can say statements like, yes, we do help with retirement planning, but there's so much more that we also do here with our firm. Whether it be college savings, debt management, life insurance is one of the things that we do. There are many things, and as I go through this through our conversation, I will be touching on these things so you get a better understanding of the many things that we do here. But I tell them from the gate what we do, and one of the reasons I do that is because one of those things probably hits a trigger in their mind. The moment you say retirement, life insurance, whether you say college savings or you say debt management, one of those things, they're going to be like, check, that's something I might be interested in. Whether they tell you or not. You planted a seed before you even started. And then I tell them, when I go into the two sets of eyes, I don't just go into the two sets of eyes from the perspective. I tell them, look, as I share this information with you, I'm not sure if you will or will not be interested in what we do as a company. I don't know that yet. But as I share this information with you, what I do know and what I am hoping for is that for the next 30 to 35 minutes, as I share this information with you, someone that you do know can benefit from the information I'm about to share with you today. And that information I'm about to share with you, as you're thinking of these individuals, as well as yourself, is that maybe a possibility. We don't know that yet. There's two ways I want you to look at it when you're thinking about this. And then you get into it with the power, because now you set and the problem that a lot of people have, and a lot of issues, I'll share with you what my issue was. It was with making them feel like, oh, I'm not coming after them. You're just helping you're just helping my trainee. My trainee needs the help. Just the reason I'm meeting with you is thank you so much for helping my trainee. You thank them so much just for their time. With no expectation sometimes to where you're just sitting down to answer questions for them. Never once do you even set the expectation that this may possibly be for you. You knock that out before you even go there because they're thinking, oh cool, this is just for them. No, this is for you. Pay attention because it may be for you, but maybe if it's not for whatever reason, I need you to start thinking of others as well because it may be for either or both. I set that from the gate. And then I go into the two sets of eyes. And then, and again, you know the two sets of eyes, and you tell them specifically, we are an educational company. Let them know that we're going to teach them some concepts from the beginning. And if there's some of the, so whether a family would love to be able to help, if you know a family that would love to retire, who do you know that wants to retire? I ask them that question sometimes, because who doesn't? And I said, well, if you know them, let me know. Or whether it's debt management, life insurance, college savings if they have children, or just want to know how money works and basic concepts to do that. Let us know. Because, and whether they want to become a client or not, I can't control that because I can't control their choice. But what I can control is me sharing this powerful information with them as well so they can at least make a better decision for them and their family. And I tell them that because some people are afraid to put down referrals because they're afraid that you're going to try to sell them something. I can tell them I can't sell someone something they don't want. That's their choice. All I want you to is put a name, a phone number, and a person that can benefit from our information so I can share that with them. And then let the chips fall where they may. That's how we're supposed to, that's what I do with them, and I set it up. And then the second set of eyes, of course, with our expansion. And with our expansion report, let them know the qualities you're looking for. I'm not just looking for a person who may not be happy with where they're working but would like to make an extra $3,000 or $4,000 or do something different, or somebody who, yes, we are, but I'm telling you, I'm looking for something specific. I'm looking for people who are passionate, who are driven, who are hardworking and have integrity and have the right intentions to make a difference for other families as well as their own family. I'm looking for people who are hungry because I can teach skills in this business. What I can't teach morals and values. So I'm looking for the right person to be able to put into our training program to go out there and expand and make a difference for others. Would you have any hesitations referring anybody who comes to mind to my trainee? I close it. What I used to do is I just went straight to the next part. Close it. Get their commitment to give them referrals. Let them know, John, you better be paying attention to what I'm saying. It's because I'm going to ask you that question at the end. Would you have any issues referring anybody that comes to mind to your trainee? The moment they say, no, I have no issues at all, they just told you, come after my referrals. Just add value to me so that I will give you those referrals. And so that door's done. And now it's open to where now you can go into the information of our company, our crusade, our story, and then get them to make a commitment to move forward. But when you set that expectation, it's not going to be weird when you ask for it at the end. You've already told them that's what you're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's more of the introduction. I expanded a lot more on that. It doesn't take that long when I meet with family, but I want to make sure I get it clear to you guys. That's a big shift that I made. It's not something, don't passively build rapport and go through this intro just to get to the next part, because it's exciting to see the trainee learn the information. No, the trainee needs to see you set it up from the beginning, because they're going to duplicate you, and you got to do it from the beginning, the right way from the beginning. But and we talk about the fluff. I'm not here to talk about that because what was happening for me, and I was doing a great intro, and I was but my ratios got better from the client perspective. They kept checking becoming my client. There was a specific box that they weren't checking that I really wanted, which was wanting to find out more about my company. Right? I wanted to build a business because then I expanded my market. But I was getting a lot of clients out of it after I made my shift with Mark. But my closing, so for some reason, was not, my batting average went from 10 out of 4 to 10 out of 8.
Wow.
From getting clients to move into the gathering data appointment, and then 60% of those became clients. Right? So that's where it changed for me. But there was one missing link. I wasn't getting recruits. And then Mark gets on the call, and I find out they're having a problem with that too. I don't know if you guys remember, months back. There's a lot of months back. Mark had a call on Friday and said, hey, we're working on ways to increase our guest count. So I'm like, okay, great. So it's not just me. But there was one person in Colorado that was expanding, and it was doing an awesome job. Her name was Rachel. So and Rachel went on a fast start school, and I heard her speak, and I said, no, I need to make sure I connect with her as soon as possible, and I did. And I'm very appreciative of her because she shared with me something that I was not doing here in the close, which I want to share with you, and this is the most important piece. That business review card is a very powerful piece of the entire presentation, is that little 3x5 card. That is your best friend. Because it doesn't matter how great your presentation was, it doesn't matter how many rules of 72s and the different variations of different concepts you can teach. It's like I shared with you guys last time, and I'm a huge adamant, I train my team this way. And I share with you, like the example I shared with you in the Olympics, right? You guys, I don't know if many of you were here, I'll share with you again. If you're in the Olympics, and you're doing the balance, or the balance beam, or the high beam, or whatever it is, and you can have a fantastic routine, beautifully performed, and the best they've ever seen, but once you release that bar, and if you don't stick that landing, that's the difference between gold and not even being on the podium. Like, that's just another, okay, next time I'll get them. Right? That's the difference. You have to stick the landing, which is the close. And what was happening to me, and the problem is, and you guys got to understand, is if you don't take this serious, you're not just affecting yourself. You're affecting the person who's next to you. Because my team, when they started seeing me struggling in the beginning because I didn't understand it, they were thinking, man, it's so hard to get these guys to do something else. Man, it's so hard to get people into the BPM. Man, this presentation isn't really getting the results that I'm looking for. It's our response. This is a field trainer summit. It's the field trainer's responsibility to be effective with what they do. That's why the validation process is nothing to joke over, because it's you being effective in the field that shows your trainee, dang, this does work, as opposed to planting the wrong seeds. Not only their confidence, but guess what? If you're not getting the results, I'll tell you this. I was running that many appointments. My confidence went down to I hit rock bottom with my confidence. I hit rock bottom as a trainer, and that's when I came to Christopher. Because it wasn't that I wasn't good enough, I just didn't know how to be effective, and I changed that. But let's talk about the close. In the closing, and I shared with you guys last time, Rachel shared this with me, the entire time you're going over this conversation with this family, you've been gathering data on them. The entire time. The entire time. So you're finding out their age. When I'll talk about the rule of 72, I ask them, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you? And they tell me. Because I'm going to put them in the example of the rule of 72. If you look at 2%, 2 divided by 72, that's 36. It's going to take 36 years for your money to double. Can you wait 36 years for your money to double? But I just asked him because all I wanted to know was, how old are you? Now I know what market you're in. Where are you at? Are you in the accumulation phase, kind of where you are? Just kind of see where the family's at. Because remember, where they are, most of their market will be in that area too. Same thing also when you're talking, whether it be their age, their occupation. When you find out what they do, you can make an adjustment and find out what they do, and whether it's retail, whether it's anything else, and you find out more about them if they like it or not. But you have to tie it into the end. You have to emotionally connect it to them. In the end, when those 2 boxes come in, remember, there's 2 reasons why we tell them that what this card is for. The first one is to keep track of the individual's training. Is that true? I don't know how many of you actually keep track of all these 3x5 cards all over your office. It's just a great segue into the real reason I'm actually giving you this card. And let's not kid ourselves, we're there to get a box check. And that's to give you, to give me some feedback. And there's 2 things that I want you to consider. The first one, it says starting a career with Transamerica Financial Advisors. I stop and I explain to them what I mean by that. I recap every single, if they've given you an answer of, I don't like what I do, I'd like to make more money, I need to know more about my retirement. When you're seeing the 3 tax boxes, you'll figure out which box they're usually in. You can ask them, do you know somebody or do you personally have a 401k? They'll tell you information like that. You're gathering information the entire time. And you have to tell them, I'm looking for sharp individuals. And as you pick up on them, sometimes you can see person's characteristics. Or if you know their occupation is a nurse or some sort of help or service, tell them you already have strengths that serve you, whether it's service, ways with people. I love the way I keep eye contact with me. You're very attentive, compliment them, let them know things you've already noticed. Because that's exactly what I'm looking for. If you are open to finding out more about our firm, and Rachel shared this with me, which made a huge difference for me, and it's completely exploratory on both ends. For you to take a look into our company and for us to take a look at you to see if there is a mutual fit to be able to be part of our crusade and our expansion. If you are open to finding out more, please check that box. I would look forward to sharing with you more about our company. If you don't, that's okay, but let me know who you do know that is looking, because I am looking for the right person, the right people, or whatever you choose to say. Then I move to the second box. Don't just name them, they can read. Tell them what you expect when you do check that box. The second box says learning more financial solutions for me and my family. If you know, as I share this information with you, if you'd like to know what your family's options are and how you can get your family to retire, whether or get your children to college, because if you find out they have kids, throw it back at them. Utilize their information they've given to you against them or for them in this, be honest with you, for them, because we're there to help them. Set the expectation. It's a complimentary roadmap. Are you kidding me? A complimentary roadmap designed just for your family to accomplish your financial dreams and goals at no cost to you. If you're open and interested in finding out what your family can truly accomplish, please check that box. And I'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you as well. And if you're interested in both, please check both, and I'd be more than happy to cover them as well. I appreciate your time. Take a couple minutes to fill out this card. But before I do you have any questions for me? And remember, the more questions you ask me, the more my trainee learns, and we're here to help them as well. So what do you have for me? And they start, and they'll ask you anything that's confusing. Usually, by then, it's about the card, not about the whole presentation. And they're like, well, what does this mean? And then you clarify that for them. So does that make sense, you guys?
Yes.
Are all of you delivering it that way?
Yes.
If you are, fantastic. You should be averaging 8, if you're batting 90% of people and you're actually getting results from them, awesome. If you're not, trust me, from a guy who was there before, work on your craft. Get great at understanding what you're saying. And together, we're going to be able to get to levels no one can as a hierarchy and as a team, because we're more effective with what we're doing. And understanding that these are the most important pieces of our presentation. If we tighten that up, you will, my hope for you is that I've shared with you something that you can utilize to get your batting average from maybe whether it's 25%, 30%, or 40% of a result to 80 and up. I know when I meet with a family, 10 times, if I meet with 10 families, I know that 8 or 9 of them are going to check a box. I know 6 or 7 of them will check both. In the last 2 months, Out of the 9 team recruits that we had in our base, 6 of them were from ASAPs. Because of how we were able to tie those things in and work it out. But again, I hope you guys found something of value. I want to, yes. We take
Yeah,
questions?
please take, any questions that you guys have, either as it relates to what he just trained on, or to your own experiences and you want help, something's not working as smoothly as you'd like it to, please take a few minutes to ask him now, and I'd like for you to get your feedback.
Okay, yes.
Good question. So my first question would be, how do you prompt your trainee to make a serious call regarding a pop by? Not just pays for my training, help me out, won't you? How do you prompt your trainee to have the right wording for that? And then you as a trainer, you said how you set the expectation. What is the language you use in setting that expectation?
Okay, first question was the training one. I'll do a 2-part
So what do
question.
you tell your trainee?
Yeah, so with my trainee, when setting up the appointments for drop-bys, one, they're not making that call, they're watching me.
100% of the time.
What was that?
100% of the time.
100% of the time. Because they don't know what they're doing. And just because you can tell them, remember, there's awkward, mechanical, and natural. So just because you tell them what to do, they're still awkward. And you're making an awkward conversation call, and you're putting the pressure on, they're going to get rejected. So one, that's going to hurt them. I take 100% of the call because and I tell them specifically, Ron, I share them, listen to what I'm saying because this is exactly how I want you to say it. Boom, start making some dials.
What about that trainee is not like a training associate, they're like a, associate, senior associate, and you still make those calls for them, or do you
No,
tell them to say it?
Early in the beginning, 100% of the call, I control the conversation, and then we're moving forward, you invite me right now. I have them tell me. I have them call me. And word for word, what would you say to this person? And I work with them to where they can say it the exact same way I want them to say it when they talk. So if I send them out, I've already heard them say it. So they should be getting a result. If they're not, something wasn't said the right way, or maybe they can give me some feedback on what the other person said, because maybe there was an objection they couldn't handle at the time or whatever. But I set the expectation first by setting the example by, they heard me, I want to hear you, now I'm going to watch you do it, and then once I see it, and Nikki shared this with me last time, and I appreciate that, she won't make them make their own calls until they prove to her that they can do it. I do the same exact thing. Now more intensely because
So
of
you're
that.
just using the Ethan script, it's not a different type of script that you
No, I'm using the top 25 reference script.
Right, that one.
Oh, yeah.
That's the same one.
Oh yeah, if I'm setting a call up for them, yeah, absolutely. But usually, but if you're doing the top 10 reference calls, you're laying them up.
Right.
That's an easier yes. The faster I can get my training to make a call and get a yes, they get excited. So all my layup calls, they call in front of me. Yeah, because then they're all, whew, I got a result, I can do this, and then we go from there. But there was a 2-part question.
The second question is, what do you say as a trainer for them to make sure that they understand that it's not only to help the trainee, but it's for their own benefit? I mean, of course you can say it that way, but is there anything you need to say in particular at that moment?
Of how it's really beneficial for the trainee?
Yes, what is the word that I guess I'm trying to say?
Well, when I tell them about their referrals, the 2 sets of eyes, I'm telling them that's how, because although, I do appreciate your time, Yvonne, this evening, or helping Anthony and Casey with their training, but understand this is just one way you're going to be able to help them, and this is with this initial training appointment that they're learning our process, but this is how you're really going to be able to help them. And it's by giving them referrals. That is the real reason, the real and best way you're truly going to help them. But and if it gets that, if you really want to get more specific on that event, you can tell them, because I've found that it's easier to give referrals when you yourself know what it is that this person is doing, so you know who you're sending them to. With that being said, there are 2 different sets of eyes I'd love you to look at this information from. So
By the way, most of these people want to help the trainee. So what Edson had just said is, I know you want to help the trainee. This is the best. You've already helped the trainee by scheduling the appointment today, the training appointment. We're thrilled with that. Thank you for your time. But because I know that you will really want to help the trainee, this is the best way that you can help the trainee. Most people want to know that anyway. Most people will comply with that once they know what that is. But if you're not doing that, then they think they're already helping you in the best way that they can just by sitting there.
And also, Yvonne, I share that too, because remember, sometimes people are like, well, I would rather give they want to give their friend the referrals, not the guy they don't know.
Right.
So I tell them, those referrals aren't for me, Yvonne, they're actually for them. So that's how you can really help them expand so they can grow and when they're ready to go out and serve these families.
We
Sorry.
know that, but if you assume that they know that, you're hosed. You've got to directly communicate that, just like Edson just did.
Sorry, Chris, I'll get back to you because Sabrina's been raising her hand for the last 5 minutes.
Do you close with the, I know that, I love the way you ended it, but do you close with the Bill Gates story?
Yes, I mean, it depends. Sometimes it just flows. I like it. I use it. But no, when I talk to Rachel, I utilize the Bill Gates story. I understand the power behind it, and I still utilize it. But sometimes I get caught up into emotionally connecting them to why they're going to want to check that box.
Mm-hmm.
You still explain the state of the industry. You explain to them how much of a big moment this is, and your passion, enthusiasm drives that through.
Mm-hmm.
But Rachel really helped me out in really understanding how you connect someone emotionally to that decision,
Right.
which is huge. Because I know Nikki talked about it last month about, you said talking through someone, not talking at them.
Exactly.
And that's what, in the same sense, in the same message, that's what Rachel helped me understand
No.
when I deliver that. So it's not necessarily, yeah, the Bill Gates story is duplicatable. And it absolutely is. You want to train that way so that the new trainee has something to go off of.
Exactly.
So if you have a trainee, I would.
Mhm.
But if you're delivering, but sometimes it gets off tangent. I start talking about my passion and what they can do because when you talk about the heart, these people feel that.
Mhm.
And then they're like, dang, this guy's talking to me. I need to find out more about this. This guy really loves what he does. So that's what
Yeah, I just find that when you use that, I like how it goes into where we're at now in financial services. The need
Oh,
to
absolutely.
know, and
It
works
sets the
real
stage.
well.
It
Yeah.
sets the stage. And then, so yeah, do that. And then I would add a little piece into that with you, your connection to it.
Right.
And that's what you're doing. Yes, Chris.
Christopher said I couldn't ask a question, so I'm going to defer to Nikki to ask my question.
Okay.
The question is, how quickly after the ASAP appointment are you scheduling and going back on the PCP?
Oh, I tell them 48 to 72 hours. I don't do the 24 to 48 hours. In my experience, most people go like, damn, this guy really needs to get in front of me or something like that. I say 48 to 72 hours. I said because as the information, and to elaborate, I say 48 to 72 hours, and I schedule it that day. Do not want, unless that person is very like hesitant and they check the box, but they're kind of like, and you know they're kind of hesitant, and the more you push, they'll think of you as salesy and they'll lose them.
Mhm.
The majority of the time, you can book it right then and there. I will, 99% of the time, I will tell them the next 40 to 72 hours, while the information is still fresh in your mind, and our conversation is fresh on both of our minds, I would love to get together as soon as possible to make sure we can move forward with your family. Yes. Sorry, Nikki's not.
And then who confirms the KCP one, and what happens if they reschedule?
Oh, I handle everything. If you're the trainer, there's no reason why your trainee should be answering any questions of rescheduling or confirming. Friends will cancel on them because it's okay, it's my friend, they'll forgive me. No, you're on my time, not my trainee's time. I'm sorry, you're just helping them, but you're on my time. So I do that. I confirm, and if they reschedule, I even tell my trainee, the moment they tell you they're rescheduling, you better tell them to call me. Or you better text me immediately so that I know something's wrong. And I can call the individual and say, hey, I heard there may be some concerns about getting together today. And what's going on? Is that true or are we still on for today? And you control that. Because they're going to try to put them off. I'm getting to it right now. Because it's my time, not the trainees. So personally, I control that stuff. And then once they get more of a trainer's role, then I can do it. I mean, once they know the words and all this stuff, then they can be effective. But if they're still training and not validated, I don't know why they should be. So personally, sorry. Yes.
Going back to the scheduling, the data gathering.
Yes.
So what if they say I can't do it until like next week?
If they truly say, well, you remember, shoot for 48 to 72 hours, but sometimes, you remember, if they're a couple and they're a family, it's got to be both of them together. I will never schedule a gathering data appointment nor a closing appointment on a one-legged appointment. Never. Ever. Doesn't matter. I will find out when the best time is for both. So if it's a week from now, because sometimes they work off schedule, somebody sometimes works morning and after, I would say, when are you both off? And find that out and schedule that. Even if it's a week out, it's stronger than a one-legged because it won't go anywhere. More likely than not. Sometimes it does. But in my experience, I just don't like it. I know somebody, yes.
Do you ever do one-legged, like a drop-by?
Yeah, that's what I loved about this presentation. The one thing I couldn't, what kind of sucked about the blue, is that if it was a one-legged appointment, I couldn't run it, so I'm losing time with all these people. I was getting rescheduled because the spouse couldn't be there. That's what I loved about the grade. The ASAP appointment can be ran one-legged. If it effectively ran, make the impression, remember, get on first base with somebody, and then you set the expectation, let them know, hey, although I met with you, the next time we get together, it has to be with both of you. And then when you do that, then you have to re-educate the other spouse that wasn't there to get them involved, and then go into what we're gonna do. Yes.
And the next question I have is, let's say you do all this work and then you get down to the end, they say, you know what, that was great, but I want to think about it.
Then you just question like handling objection. Then of course then we get into the what is it exactly that you got to think about, and then you just handle it from that, and then you just peel back the onion because I mean when somebody tells you this was great information, and then but let me think about it. I'm telling you, when I see something that I want, I go for it. So that you've added some sort for them to tell you it's something. This was great information. I didn't even ask them before I say, well, what is it that you want to think about? I say, well, what was it about my presentation that was so great? Because then you have something to hook. Well, I love the fact that families can retire tax-free. So, so do you want to retire tax-free yourself? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what is it
Bring it
exactly
on
that you got to think about? Let's find out what your options are, and then you'll have a reason to think about whether that option is something you'd be interested in. Something you got to get into. You got to get into something that hooks them to get them back in somehow. I know she's been raising her hand. I'm sorry. What's your name? Cira, ¿cómo estás?
Do you tell your story in the intro, like you share something about you?
My personal story?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, no, because I set them up with 2 sets of eyes. I share my personal story at the end when I connected with them emotionally when I'm closing for how it changed me and why I chose this business, how I started on a part-time basis, how I was at a job that I wanted to do something special for my family, hit my dreams and goals, and the crusade of helping others. I share it more on the back end because that's when I'm emotionally connecting them to what they can really do here, not on the front end. So I kind of changed it from where the TRC, you do it on the front end. Here I'm connecting it with how they can personally relate to a guy who has no experience in the financial industry before, a Marine who's now in the financial services industry. I tie it at the end while I'm explaining the top box.
But you
Yep.
still TRC in the beginning, right, to build a rapport relationship.
Verbally, yes, I don't use the sheet. Verbally, I always build rapport. If you don't build rapport, you haven't set nothing up. You can't set them up or gather data on them if you don't build rapport. Absolutely, I TRC them. You know, what do they do? What do they do for a living? What do they like about it, dislike? I do all that stuff, just verbally, but not writing it down. It's a little bit.
How much time do you spend on it? How much time do you spend on it?
Well, to be honest with you, 5 minutes maybe, because you want to because it sets me up. I think it's very important you got to get in their mind. If you don't get in their mind, you don't know what they're looking for or what they don't like, what they dislike. Sometimes if they tell you what they don't like about their job, you know how many times throughout the 30 minutes you're speaking with them, you can throw that in there of how we're so much different. If you blow off rapport, you're hurting yourself, I think. Because we're a relationship business. If we're a relationship business, focus on building the trust. And remember, they don't trust you, they trust the trainee. I got to earn their trust by getting to know them. If I just go straight into the appointment, then they're like, well, this guy just wants to get this thing done. No, I say, hey, I'm here to meet you. And then how I can connect what I do to you and how that can benefit my training as well. I hope that answers that question there. Anybody else? Yes, Nikki.
Are you using the green book chart with or without the compensation?
Without.
Patient conventions, so we wouldn't have that compensation.
Without, because then if they check that box, it said not only are you going to find out who we are, more about who we are, what we do, but how we get paid. It gives, a lot of people want to know how we get paid, so I use it as a hook too, like, dang, you need to find out how much money you can really make. So I don't put it out in the beginning. So, I don't.
Even though it is said in the intro that being part-time here, you can make $2,000,
Yeah.
$4,000 bucks.
But remember, it's the interest of, they're just checking to find out more. The more intrigue I can create, the more I can, now they're like, dang, I gotta find out more because I'm not giving him everything I got.
Yeah.
So the way I think, and just to let you know, my mind real quick, I throw a cast, and let's see if they bite. If they bite, I reel them in. Don't yank it. Don't be like, oh yeah, you want to know more about money? Let me tell you everything. No, hey, let me throw a cast. You want to know more about our firm? Great, come to my world. I'm in your house right now. You need to come to my house. You need to come to my office. And now you're on my court, and then we can have that control. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes.
Are you doing a lot where it's
go right into the day gathering if it's comfortable and client's ready, or you strictly like, we have to come back?
Oh, no, I go straight to, they know why I'm there. Yeah, because, well, you gotta tell them in the end. So when you schedule that time, and I didn't mention this, so I'm sorry about that. Yeah, if you schedule that time, I tell them to make it easier on us, because a lot of people say it's about 20 to 30, it's not 20 to 30 minutes if they're unprepared. You're there for 45 minutes to an hour because they're so scattered. But when you schedule an appointment to come back, oh yeah, I tell them, have all this stuff ready, all your debt cards, everything you have in the bank, anything you own, have it ready. If you don't know specifics, get me the closest estimate numbers you can, but just be ready. Oh yeah, because then it saves you time.
Do it on the ASAP or?
Towards the end, if I book the appointment, it's really quick, yeah, I let them know. Or if I sometimes tend to forget, because understand, trainers aren't perfect, sometimes there's little things you forget, and you're like, dang, I forgot to say that. As I confirm, I say that, I remind them when I confirm.
No, I mean, you go into the data gathering on the ASAP.
Do you ever collect information?
Oh, right, oh, like right after?
Yeah,
If-
if you.
There's two ways I will. If I have enough time before my next appointment, and my trainee's still okay, and I ask them, hey, look, I was only supposed to be here just for this portion of it, and we could do two things. If it's okay with you, I know you're interested in finding out your options for you and your family. I'd love to be able to, if you have an extra 30 to 45 minutes so we can gather this information, so that way we can, the next time I come back, I can have the solutions ready, so you can see what can be done. If you have that time, I do have time before my next appointment, I'd be more than happy to spend that with you, because I know how important it is for you to find out what options are for you and your family, or else you wouldn't be checking that box. And then or we can schedule the next 40 to 72 hours. I give them that option if I have the gap, as well if it's my last appointment of the night. So if I have enough time, and if between appointments, and if because remember, we have a 3-step appointment process. And if you can cut it down to 2, it's awesome. It cuts the time frame, but sometimes depending on the family, and I'm sometimes hesitant about it, because I told them I'm only there for their training, so sometimes I like to keep my promise. But if they're like, sometimes you'll hear people like, oh man, that's awesome, or they'll say things, I'm not happy with my 401k, or I'm not, yes, I lost money. They need what you do quick, because they'll do it. So it's a feel thing, but but that's how I would do it if I did. I hope that helped. Yes.
Yeah, you're probably only gonna collect data if you have both the husband and wife there, not if it's a single one-legged appointment.
Never. If there's one-legged on gathering data or closing, I will never run that appointment, because the chances of charging back and all and oh, let me think about it is, and guess what? The number one and easiest one objection would ever be that you cannot overcome, no matter how great you are in the field. You know what? Let me talk to my husband, or let me talk to my spouse, because they are not there. Even if you try to be aggressive and say, well, call them, it doesn't matter. You have to. It's just weak. It's a weak. You're setting yourself up for a weak appointment.
And you know what they
and
do?
A weak commitment.
They'll say the husband will say, oh no, I do. I take care of everything. My wife doesn't. That's the way it starts. Or the wife will say that, and then all of a sudden, then when you're done, it's like, well, no, I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk. So you have to, like you said, you cannot make that.
Yeah, because they're both financial, and there are individuals like that. In my case, I don't really get that.
I don't either.
I don't really get that objection as much as, or the area of concern as much as I used to. But if I do, I tell them, look, it's not really about for you, and I respect the fact that you're the decision maker of the family, but I would love to share this information as well with your spouse, so at least she has, although she may not be the decision maker, or he is not the decision maker, I would like for them to know what it is exactly that is going to be happening, so she understands what you're making a decision about. Exactly. But also, she may know of other individuals that can benefit from this as well. Because remember, we're 100% referral-based business. You have them both there, that's more chances of getting referrals, because absolutely, we're 100. If you're not getting referrals, you got to work on that. And I know, well, there's a class on that today. So,
right.
And I don't know if we have.
Any other questions?
I'm over. Sorry.
It was worth every second.
All right, good. You do it.